Kamen Rider Saber was one of the most divisive seasons in the Kamen Rider franchise as it was airing, so I was pretty surprised when it was announced the story of the season would be continuing with a V-Cinema. I was even more surprised to learn that this wouldn't just be the traditional V-Cinema developing the story of a side character or characters, but would actually just focus on the main trio of the original season and evolve all of their narratives together in unique ways. The final surprise for me after the movie has been released was that Kamen Rider Saber Trio of Deep Sin was one of, if not the most distinct and incredible V-Cinemas of the entire franchise. So today I'm going to talk all about the final chapter in the Kamen Rider Saber saga and give all of my thoughts on it. Be sure to let me know what you personally thought of Trio of Deep Sin down in the comment section. I'd love to hear your ideas. And also don't forget that I have tons of Kamen Rider Saber content on this channel. I'm a huge fan of the season, so I've got reviews, theories, unboxings, and more. Be sure to take a look around for other videos you might enjoy if you find yourself enjoying this one. So the thing that stands out to me the most about this movie is how it barely resembles a Toei Bandai production. The scene that really demonstrates this point to me is the apartment sequence. The lighting and cinematography is so stunning for what's just the characters chilling out and having a little dinner party at home. There's no Kamen Rider Saber toys or tokusatsu suits or anything like that. It's just people being people. And I think they're the most spectacularly presented shots in this movie. It kind of feels more like a sequence from like a J-drama, I guess, rather than a Kamen Rider Saber movie. The cinematic atmosphere is really present throughout the whole film as well. It starts off with these point-of-view shaky cam shots, which are unlike anything I've seen in Kamen Rider and set a super unsettling and creepy vibe. There's some great usages of editing and sound to maintain that, and the film just looks beautiful, even disregarding the fact that Saber has my favorite aesthetics in Kamen Rider. And actually that doesn't even matter because there are barely any Saber suits in this. The first transformations aren't until 40 minutes into this 70-minute film. That is crazy. And the engines we do get are so different from how they are in the show. They go like somewhat over the top and have this intense new style, and unless they're a new toy, the jingles are gone. And doing this kind of enhances like the tokusatsu elements that we do have. Thanks to the tone set at the beginning of the movie, the Falchions have a really creepy vibe to them, almost like a serial killer. They don't feel like Kamen Riders, they feel like creepy monsters, how they suddenly appear and disappear, even with a voice modulator. Whew, man, they have an incredible presence. Toma's first henshin has so much weight to it, not only because the movie is almost over by this point, but because it's just this fiery inferno consuming him, almost harkening back to the concept of a Kamen Rider being this monstrous transformation into something inhuman. It feels like there was a real effort here to create something new and unique, not just for Saber, but for all of modern Kamen Rider, to the point where this just feels kind of like a normal ass movie rather than a needlessly bloody adult spin-off of a kids show. And I absolutely love the film for that. As someone who enjoyed the original Saber season, I thought taking this step back from all the sword slashing and power books and stuff and just focusing on our main characters as normal people separate from all the Kamen Ridering was such a fantastic concept. I really loved seeing these characters in new environments and using that as a method to flesh out their personalities in a unique way that couldn't be done in the original show. The main facilitation for that is of course the titular Trio of Deep Sin. Maybe it was obvious for some people, but going into this I thought that the Trio of Deep Sin was referring to our main three riders and like atrocities they've committed in the past, and we would only have one Falchion. And while yes, we do deal with like the atrocities of our main three riders, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that the real Trio of Deep Sin were the friends we made along the way, was a trio of Falchion riders. It's super cool to me that Saber could introduce what seemed like a one-off sword for a random episode-length movie, and then continue to bring that back over the course of the show show, now bringing it back in a V-Cinema and turning the idea on its head now as like a pseudo mass production writer where we've got multiple copies of the sword going around. It's so cool. I really love it. Even if I don't like the sword itself, I can't deny that the idea of the sword in the storylines are awesome. With a recent drought of good movie villains, I thought the Falchion trio was actually a really interesting set of characters. Their main goal kind of reminded me of a plot from the Cross Z cinema, where the aftermath of battles from the show drives someone to revenge, and then their execution of the school by erasing memories in order to erase entire people is a concept straight out of Den-O. So taking two ideas from some of my favorite Rider seasons and giving it a bit of a Saber twist maybe improved my opinion of this. Since the civilian factor was such a huge component of Saber since episode 1, I thought having a group of them scorned by the Sword of Logos and now gaining the ability to fight back against them was awesome. It was such a unique evolution to have the Sword of Logos itself be the main target of the villains, and it made the central conflict all the more interesting. Personally, I think Rintaro had the weakest storyline of the three. I like the idea of having his biological family come into play, since his arc in the show was about being an orphan, finding family in the Sword of Logos. But something here just felt disingenuous. Since we've been led to believe Rintaro was really an orphan this whole time, I kinda thought this was just a random dude conning Rintaro into thinking they were related. It's super weird to me that his dad leaves, stumbles upon random casualties from a Sword of Logos battle, discovers his son is part of the Sword of Logos, and then decides, I should kill my son. I would have preferred if maybe we got more of a flashback where the Sword of Logos kind of stole the Rintaro after his mother died, so then the dad has this righteous intent to get his son back, but with the malicious actions of erasing his adoptive family. So then Rintaro's conflict at the end is choosing to fight for that adoptive family instead of his real family that has kind of betrayed him. Otherwise, I think the dad's speech to Rintaro about people in power is somewhat compelling, and I think it's key that he uses one of Rintaro's lines about staying true to his beliefs, referring to those beliefs. I thought Kento's story with Wakana from Kamen Rider Double was way more intense. First off, they kiss on the lips in Kamen Rider. I've never seen this happen. Crazy stuff. I've never seen people kiss before. So, you know, I'm like, what are they doing? Are they hugging with their faces? Even crazier is Wakana herself. This woman literally spent all these years with Kento, even agreed to marry him just so she could murder him and get revenge for a different man. That's some typical Kamen Rider V Cinema edgy stuff, but I kind of enjoyed it. This storyline isn't as complex as the others, but that's pretty much what I liked about it. The pure insanity of this villain being driven by love and pure hatred was just really fun to watch. She was the most interesting of the three Falchions, in my opinion. Their final battle was literally in the church Kento thought he was going to get married in. And that hits hard, for him at least. For me, I'm like, ouch. This plot just had a gut-wrenching aspect that none of the others had to them, with the necessary backstory and interactions so that it felt really fleshed out, and you felt the emotion of the characters. However, it also debuts Arabiana Night, which is the most disappointing part of the movie to me. I'm no stranger to power-ups coming out of nowhere, so it's weird but nothing surprising. But I think it's really weird how the movie tries to say that Wakana gave Kento the power-up somehow because she put his books on a shelf or something. It's kind of interesting how that plays into the jingle, bringing back the female vocalist for the books. It's like Wakana's spirit in the book, but I would have been perfectly content if it just came from Kento's willpower. Since it's based on the book that caused the two to meet, the concept of it being a symbol for their relationship already comes across, and Wakana losing because she started to love Kento and held back in their final fight makes sense to me. So adding the other thing that she made this book feels unnecessary. And it's also a beautiful looking form with stunning visuals alongside it, but it just gets a little fight scene before we're never gonna see it again. So all that contrived logic just for a new toy that had less than 5 minutes of screen time. Okay. Speaking of contrived logic, one last critique I have of this movie is the whole thing with Riku Mamiya, or rather Mamiya and Riku. It felt super unnecessary to make them the same person split from one soul. It's like, why? Not only is it just a super random thing for the Kyomu to do, but it also sort of cheapens the end of the movie since Mamiya is so revenge driven and suddenly gets his memories back and is like, oh, actually I don't want to do this. Okay, Riku, let's change the entire time stream somehow. I think the movie would have been pretty much perfect if these were two completely different people that have been orphaned by Saber's battles. When Riku defends Toma in the end, Mamiya comes to this full circle realization that he's attempting to orphan a child and continue the vicious cycle, while Riku has already stopped it by accepting Toma as his new father. So then Mamiya loses his faith in his goal of killing the swordsman, and then this would just undo all the memory erasure stuff, and we just have the Sword of Logos come back to life without any of the weird time travel stuff. And Riku and Toma can stay together, because I thought Toma's story was really sweet. It is my favorite of all these storylines. I just thought it was a really cute idea to have Toma adopt the son in the wake of losing his bookstore. It was really heartbreaking to see him have to grapple with the fact Riku may never really speak to him or consider him his father because he accidentally orphaned him. However, at the same time, it was really heartwarming to see Toma step into the role of a father, as it shows how much he's grown and matured since the beginning of Saber. I especially enjoyed how this played into the new take on his book ideals. Instead of trying to force Riku to enjoy books like he does, he just recognizes that Riku can have his own special something in the world to help him out, Lucky from Hawkeye, and spends the whole film fighting to protect him. Riku's actor did an incredible job portraying the character's internal struggle, so when he was finally able to accept Toma and called out to him as his dad, I really felt that. It was really cool. And then he wields his father's weapon, the Kainken Rekka, to save his dad? Now he's just a plain badass. It was pretty fulfilling to see Toma somewhat pass down his swordsmanship to someone years after the show, as I've always enjoyed the legacy lore of Saber. And that's why the ending really hits hard. After seeing the connection between Toma and Riku, it was really sad to see that have to get severed in order to save everyone else, as the two of them were just so wholesome by the end of the movie. But I'm at least happy that it's implied Toma still remembers everything and the memory of Riku Mamiya still lives on. I guess you could say Kamen Rider Saber Trio of Deep Sin is just an amazing movie. It manages to be a respectful and thought-provoking continuation of the original season, and also just a really interesting and intelligent movie all at the same time. And despite all of my little criticisms, I definitely loved it. I hope that future Kamen Rider V cinemas will take some inspiration from this, as this was an excellent way to close the book on the Kamen Rider Saber story. For now, maybe they'll do something else. Once again, be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie. Check out my other Saber videos if you enjoyed this one. Hit that subscribe button for more of my Kamen Rider content, and I hope to see you next time.